It feels like a superpower. You're stuck on an email, and in seconds, it's written. You don't understand something, and the answer arrives instantly, clear and confident. A hard problem, a blank page, a decision you've been avoiding, you just ask, and it's handled. Artificial intelligence has quietly become the most capable tool humans have ever held. And it seems obvious that a tool this powerful can only make us smarter, more productive, more capable. But there's a strange, uncomfortable possibility hiding underneath all that convenience. What if the tool that makes everything easier is also very quietly changing the organ you use to think? Not in some distant sci-fi way. Right now, in your brain. In a way you can't actually feel while it's happening. That's what this video is about. Not whether AI is good or bad, but what it's doing to you, every time you reach for it instead of your own mind. In 2025, a team of researchers at the MIT Media Lab decided to look, literally, at what happens inside the brain when we let AI do our thinking. They gathered a group of people and asked them to write essays. But they split them into 3 groups. The first group could use ChatGPT. The second could use a search engine but no AI. And the third group had nothing at all. No tools, no internet, just their own minds. And while everyone wrote, the researchers recorded their brain activity using an EEG, measuring how much the brain was actually engaging. The results were striking. The brain-only group lit up the most. Strong, widespread connectivity, the signature of a mind fully at work. The search engine group landed somewhere in the middle. And the ChatGPT group? They showed the weakest brain engagement of all, the least connected, the most switched off. But the most unsettling finding came afterward. When researchers asked the AI users to quote a single sentence from the essay they had just produced minutes earlier, many of them couldn't do it. They had generated an essay, put their name on it, and retained almost nothing. It had passed through them without ever really entering their minds. The researchers followed these groups over 4 months, and the pattern didn't fade, it deepened. The team gave this quiet compounding effect a name. They called it cognitive debt. To understand why this happens, you have to understand one simple thing about the brain. Your brain is not a fixed object. It's more like a landscape that reshapes itself around how you use it. Neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. The pathways you use often grow stronger, and the ones you stop using grow weaker and eventually fade. It really is, in the most literal sense, use it or lose it. Every mental task you do, remembering a fact, working through a problem, searching for the right word, lights up a specific set of circuits. And the effort of doing it is what keeps those circuits strong. The struggle isn't a bug. The struggle is the workout. So what happens when you hand that task to something else? The circuit goes quiet. Once, that's nothing. But do it 1,000 times, 10,000 times, and the pathway you've stopped using begins to weaken, the same way a muscle you never use begins to waste away. This is called cognitive offloading, shifting mental work onto an external tool. And in small doses, it's completely normal. We've always done it, with notes, with lists, with calculators. The question isn't whether we offload, it's what happens when we offload the deepest thing we do, when we stop practicing thought itself. And if you want to know how that story ends, we already have 2 examples. Because this isn't the first time we handed a piece of our minds to a machine. Think about phone numbers. There was a time not long ago when you knew dozens of them by heart. Your friends, your family, your own home. Now, most people can't recall more than 1 or 2. Not because your memory got worse, but because your phone remembers for you. So your brain quietly stopped bothering. Psychologists actually studied this. Back in 2011, a researcher named Betsy Sparrow ran a series of experiments and found something fascinating. When people know they can look information up later, they don't remember the information itself. Instead, they remember where to find it. We'd started using the internet as a kind of external hard drive for our memory. They called it the Google effect, digital amnesia. Now take it further to something physical: navigation. In 2020, researchers found that people who habitually rely on GPS have measurably worse spatial memory, and the longer you use it, the steeper the decline. Brain scans hint at it too. Heavy GPS users tend to have less grey matter and less activity in the hippocampus, the region that builds our mental maps. So sit with the pattern. We outsourced our memory and stopped remembering. We outsourced our navigation and lost our sense of direction. And now, with AI, we are beginning to outsource the one thing underneath all of it: the thinking itself. Here's the part that's easy to miss, because it raises a fair question. So what? If the machine can think for me, why do I need to? And the answer is that thinking was never only about getting the answer. When you struggle through a hard problem, something happens that has nothing to do with the solution. You build understanding. You form connections between ideas. You develop judgment, the felt sense of what's true, what's off, what matters. That only comes from having done the wrestling yourself. When you let AI hand you a finished answer, you get the output, but you skip the process. And the process was the entire point. It's the difference between watching someone lift weights and lifting them yourself. Both of you saw the workout. Only one of you got stronger. This is why the researchers were worried. It wasn't just weaker memory. They warned that heavy AI reliance was linked to diminished critical thinking, less creativity, and a greater vulnerability to being misled, because a mind that no longer practices thinking for itself loses the ability to tell when something is wrong. And a separate study of over 600 people found exactly this. The more someone leaned on AI, the lower they scored on critical thinking. The effect was strongest in the youngest group, the ones who may now fully build the muscle in the first place. That's the real cost of cognitive debt. Not that you forget an essay, but that slowly you lose the very ability that makes your mind your own. Now, this is the part where it would be easy to say, so throw your phone in the ocean and never touch AI again. But that's not the answer. And the same MIT study is the reason why. Because there was a fourth group, people who wrote the essay with their own brain first, who did the hard thinking themselves, and then brought AI in to help. And those people kept their brain engagement. They got the benefit of the tool without paying the cognitive debt. The danger, it turns out, was never the tool. It was the order. When you reach for AI first, before you've thought at all, you skip the workout entirely. But when you think first and use AI second, to sharpen, to check, to extend what you've already built, the machine becomes an amplifier of your mind, not a replacement for it. So the rule is simple. Struggle first. Assist second. Sit with the blank page for a minute before you ask for help. Try to recall the fact before you look it up. Attempt the hard problem before you hand it over. Let yourself be a little bit stuck, because being stuck is the sensation of your brain actually working. Use AI like a bicycle for the mind. Something that takes you further under your own power, not a wheelchair that carries a body that has forgotten how to walk. The convenience is real. You just have to make sure you're the one still doing the thinking. We are the first generation to face this particular temptation. A tool so capable that it can quietly do our thinking for us, so smoothly that we never notice the moment we stopped. And that's what makes it different from every tool before it. You can feel your legs get tired. You can feel yourself out of breath. But you cannot feel a thought you never had. You cannot notice the idea that never came, the connection your mind was too unpracticed to make. Cognitive debt is invisible, which is exactly what makes it dangerous. But you are not helpless here, because the same brain that can be softened by disuse can be strengthened by effort. Every time you choose to think before you outsource, you're not just solving one problem, you're keeping a circuit alive. You're refusing to let a part of yourself go quiet. So the next time you reach for AI, and you will, and you should, just pause for 1 second first. Ask yourself, could I try this on my own, even for a moment, before I hand it over? Because the goal was never to reject the future. It's to walk into it awake, to use the most powerful tool we've ever built, without forgetting how to do the one thing that made us worth building tools in the first place: to think.